Chapter 5. Water. Water on Earth. The presence of water is a unique feature of our planet. The area under land and water on the Earth's surface is about 29% and 71% respectively. This shows the predominance of water. Water is found in oceans, seas, bays, gulfs, lakes, rivers, etc. The watery part of the Earth is called hydrosphere. The total amount of water on the Earth's surface is estimated to be about 1,250 million cubic kilometer. Most of this water, about 97%, is in the oceans. The total amount of water present on the Earth is fixed, and it is approximately the same as it was during the Ice Age. Water cycle. Water is continuously moving from the Earth's surface into the atmosphere and back again to the Earth's surface. Water from the different water bodies reaches the atmosphere through evaporation in the form of water vapor. Due to loss of heat in the atmosphere, the process of condensation takes place. Thus, water vapor is converted back into water drops. This leads to precipitation in the form of rain, snow, or sleet. Water that falls on land in the form of rain collects in ponds or flows as streams or rivers. The rivers carry the water back to the oceans. This never-ending movement of water is called hydrological cycle or water cycle. Thus, the water cycle has no beginning or end. Distribution of water bodies. The present distribution of land and water on the Earth's surface shows that the northern hemisphere has more land than water, while the southern hemisphere is almost a water hemisphere. Oceans. Oceans are very large water bodies. There are 4 major oceans: Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic. There is another large water body around Antarctica. It is called the Southern Ocean or the Antarctic Ocean. Ocean water. It is the saline water found in Earth's oceans, constituting a major part of the planet's hydrosphere. It is a complex mixture of various dissolved salts, gases, organic matter, and minerals. The quantity of saline water is more than the availability of fresh water on the Earth. Being salty is unfit for our daily use. Fresh water. It is defined as water that contains low level of salts and is suitable for drinking, irrigation, and supporting various forms of life. The main sources of fresh water are rivers, lakes, ponds, springs, and glaciers. Temperature of ocean water. The sun is the main source of heat for the ocean water. The temperature of the surface water in the oceans is not the same everywhere. In general, water is warmer near the equator. The temperature decreases towards the polar regions. The average temperature near the equator is about 26 degrees Celsius. The temperature also decreases with depth. Salinity of ocean water. Ocean water is saline due to the presence of a large amount of dissolved salts. Most of it is sodium chloride or common salt. Salinity is the amount of salt in grams present in 1000 grams of water. The amount of salinity varies from one part of the ocean to another. In general, salinity decreases towards the equator due to heavy rainfall. Swimmers can float in it because the increased salt content makes it dense. Circulation of ocean water. Ocean water is always in motion. It moves horizontally as well as vertically. The movement of ocean water takes place in 3 different ways: waves, tides, and ocean currents. Winds provide the main force for the horizontal movement of ocean water. This movement is basically due to prevailing winds, differences in temperature and salinity of ocean water, variation in the density of ocean water. Waves. Waves are formed in the oceans or seas when the wind blows across the water surface. The shape and size of the wave depend on the speed of the prevailing winds. In the waves, the surface water rises and falls. The actual forward motion of the water particles in a wave is limited. The rise and fall of water in a wave represent crests and troughs respectively. The horizontal distance from one crest to another or from one trough to another is called wave length. The vertical distance from crest to trough is called wave height. Sometimes, especially during storms, huge oceanic waves are formed. Such waves can also be generated due to earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. These waves can be as high as 20 to 30 meters. They are called tsunamis, pronounced as tsunami. Tides. People who live in the coastal areas know that the sea water generally rises and falls twice every day almost at regular intervals. This phenomenon of the alternate rise and fall in the level of sea water are called tides. Tides are mostly experienced in oceans and seas. The gravitational pull of the moon and the sun on the surface of the earth causes tides. Tides follow the apparent movement of the moon due to its closeness to the earth. Tides are of two types, high tide and low tide. The rise in water level is called high tide, while the fall in water level is called low tide. Tides do not rise to the same height every day. The relative position of the moon and the sun with respect to the earth is responsible for the variation in the height of tides. There are two extreme positions. On full moon and new moon, the sun, the moon and the earth are almost in a straight line. The sun and the moon exert a combined gravitational pull. Thus, high tides are the highest and low tides are the lowest. This phenomenon is known as spring tide. On half-moon day, the sun and the moon make a right angle to the earth. Thus, the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon tends to cancel each other. This results in a very small rise or fall in sea water and is known as neap tide. Importance of tides. Tides make some rivers navigable for ocean-going vessels. During high tide, the depth of water at the mouth of some rivers increases. This helped the ships to reach the ports located on those rivers. The importance of the Kolkata port on River Hooghly and the London port on River Thames is due to tides. Ocean currents. Ocean water moves from one part of the ocean to another. The movement of ocean water in the form of a stream, in a definite direction, on the ocean surface is called an ocean current. Ocean currents are like rivers in the sea and their banks and beds are of sea water. The movement of currents is visible on the ocean surface. Ocean currents develop due to the variation in the temperature of ocean water, variation in the density of ocean water, direction of the prevailing winds, rotation of the earth, shape and position of the coast. The general circulation of ocean currents is clockwise in the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Ocean currents are often narrow and swift. They move at speeds of 3 to 10 km per hour. In some areas, ocean currents are very broad. This is called a drift. On the basis of temperature, ocean currents can be classified into two types: warm currents and cold currents. The difference in temperature between warm and cold currents is only a few degrees. Warm currents flow from the equatorial region towards the polar regions, while cold currents flow from the polar regions towards the equatorial region. Major cold currents: 1. West wind drift. 2. Benguela current. 3. Canaries current. 4. California current. 5. West Australian current. 6. Oyashio current. 7. Labrador current. 8. Humboldt, Peru current. Major warm currents: 1. North and South equatorial current. 2. Gulf Stream. 3. Alaska current. 4. North Pacific drift. 5. Kuroshio current. 6. Brazilian current. 7. Oglass current. 8. Mozambique current. Effects of ocean currents. Ocean currents exercise great influence on the climate and economic activities of the coastal areas. Ocean currents influence the distribution of temperature over the globe. The warm and the cold currents increase or decrease the temperature of the coastal areas. Warm currents increase the moisture-bearing capacity of the wind, while cold currents decrease the same. Deserts are mostly found along the western side of the continents, along which cold currents flow. Mixing of cold and warm currents causes dense fog, which hampers navigation. The best fishing grounds of the world are found where warm and cold currents meet. Thus, areas around Newfoundland and Japan are rich in fish.